Ahoy! With the new patch, we not only received a bunch of new artifacts, but also some changes to those artifacts and some to existing artifacts. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about the changes specifically. I want to talk about how to upgrade the new artifacts, or what the best upgrades I think are for them, and also where to get them in case you don't know that yet. The first one is of course Boltcaster, but a pretty significant change since PTR, mostly a buff in most situations, but in some situations also a nerf. It's just less annoying but more damage in return. So the main change here was the passive Bolt. Bolt is a damage increase, increasing your damage after every third shot. So you build up static charges lasting 3 seconds, and then if you hit bow lightning damage specifically at 3 stacks, it'll consume the charges and trigger a bolt of lightning, dealing 80% damage. That's obviously a pretty significant boost, kind of similar to Attunement, but kind of more backloaded. You need to hit a few shots first, and overall I think a very good passive for this weapon to have. Overall, I think this is one that can definitely deal an absolute truckload of damage now. We will look into that more in a separate video, but it's definitely something worth using in certain situations. Now, when it comes to the empty slot here, the passive, we have a few options, and I think Boltcaster is one where a bit more testing is required to fully decide what's best, because there are some things going on with the 50 in passive and how other things factor in that make it arguable if you want to go in that direction or if you want to build it differently. So normally beforehand I would have said you need to have Keenly Jagged here to have more consistent dot uptime so that you can get the int passive, but with all the changes happening in that regard and with the 150 int perk nerf, it could be possible that, for example, Keenly Empowered could be an interesting choice as well. And likewise, also, it's always worth considering with things like this if you possibly want to have Plagued Crits. That's because it's just a very strong utility perk to have in general, and as such, I would not rule that out entirely. We have a few options here. It's basically all the keen perks that you're mainly looking at, I would say, but overall, definitely not the one where I'm the most decided on with the upgrades yet, where I will test some more. The Boltcaster can be farmed from the Annoyed Aguasika or Aguaskia or something, I'm not quite sure. Drops on the usual Isle of Zervan, right where the Life Taker is also dropping from the same spawn. It's one of the other mobs there. So yeah, a lot of people farming that. Should be pretty easy to get. The next one, which surprised me a little bit, is Deep Freeze. Now, Deep Freeze on the PTR was weaker. You can see that here. The PTR version had Unbroken Winds as a necessary perk on it, and now it just deals bonus damage like before. Frozen, Rooted, and Chilled to enemies take 15% additional damage from both of your weapons, but it also comes with strong weapon perks for itself with Vicious and Refreshing Move. So not really much of a reason to use other Ice Gauntlet anymore once you have this, as far as I see it anyways. Unless you have something very specific. You can even put any ability perk on here if you want to. So, for example, if you like Pylon Burst, you can still put Pylon Burst on that, or any of the other ones. The Ice Gauntlet has a surprising amount of pretty solid options, like Unending Thaw is something some people like, for example. Of course, Empowered Spike, if you want to go for a Spike build, is incredibly strong. You get that bonus damage and then the other bonus damage. So many different options that you can consider just based on what your build or playstyle is. You can also go for better all-rounders. Of course, you can go for Attunement or something like that. So really, anything is possible here. What you cannot do is get something enchanted because you have Vicious now, so that kind of locks out damage con, but any PvP punish effect or something you want, all that is possible. So really build it according to whatever you prefer, whatever your playstyle with an Ice Gauntlet is. There is not really a general perfect answer for this one. Deep Freeze drops from the Ice Troll, which you can see here is in the new dungeon. It's actually not the last boss, it's the first boss, so a lot of people are just doing runs of the first boss and then they drop out of the dungeon again. So it's up to you if you want to go the whole way or just farm the Ice Gauntlet. But either way, not that hard to get. Vengeance is the new life staff, which is... yeah, I don't really know what to say here, because if you look at this has not been changed since PTR, and the feedback was that it's super weird. Whereas the Ice Gauntlet, I know a lot of people were also complaining about that, but that was changed. And there are other ones that were also not changed. I'm wondering why that is the case. With Vengeance, it really is just very trolly, I would say. It still is very much a damage life staff where you somehow get more damage and have the damaging effects on it, and then you have Keen Beacon. It's strange, and it makes it a very weird one to give any serious recommendations for. I would probably say, if you're going this way, I would still get Blessed or Savior likely, because I still think that overall you want to have some healing increases on it, but then again, it's so weird in terms of playstyle that at that point you might want to be going for Keen instead of something, because you say you would want even more damage. I'm not sure. It depends on how you use it, but if you want to have some level of healing on it, I would say probably Savior or Blessed are your better options here, but it's a very strange life staff. That one is a PvP track one, so just PvP track 20 plus, like all of them now. Nothing specific for the farm here. Gladiator is the new round shield that was terrible on PTR and is still terrible now. My recommendation here, I'm going to start with this, is to not upgrade this at all. If you want to upgrade it, you can go for Enchanted or Vicious. Generally, really not worth it at this point, in my opinion, because the biggest problem with this, it has this unique passive of applying bleeds when attackers attack you, but the bleeds don't even stack, it's just a refreshing bleed, and it takes away the shield aggression perk instead. It takes away the normal round shield passive just to get this, which is not good at all. And then you have diminishing shield bash and fortifying shield rush on it, which not necessarily that many round shield builds use together in the first place. Usually there is obviously the leaping strike build with shield rush and shield bash, but in those situations you don't even benefit that much from the fort shield rush, and diminishing shield bash isn't that valued. And then there's a lot of players that are using Whirling Blade now, so I really don't know where this is going, what the purpose of this is. I don't think it's good in any way. I would not recommend upgrading this. If you want to farm it, it drops from the Tribunal Ice Mammoth down at the southeast of Elysian Wilds, so that's the Tribunal High Mount. There's a couple of them that you can farm for this. Why you would want to do that, I'm not sure. Koya's Nigats are interesting now. They kind of like gone through a couple iterations. For some reason here it now again says incoming ranged attacks deal 10% less damage to you, which was not what it was in the patch notes. Here, as you can see on PTR, it was just physical and it was 33%. So I'm not sure which one's messed up at the moment, if it's the in-game one being wrong or if it's the patch notes being wrong. Either way, if you want to get those, they will come from Outpost Rush. They come from the Outpost Rush caches. Some people have been lucky with that, some people have been extremely unlucky. So yeah, it's a rough farm, I would say. If you specifically want these, you're in for struggle. They have Enchanted Ward and Physical Aversion, so what you want to add here in most cases, unless you have something very specific that you need, is health. Maybe you might want to be interested in Shirking Heals instead as well, because that is pretty solid again now. That's a consideration too. But yeah, it's weird. With these values, it once again looks like it's worse than Featherweight anyways, but I'll have to verify if these values are actually correct, or if the PTR values, the patch note values are correct, so it's a bit weird at the moment. The Quick Draw Gloves are one of the less popular artifacts so far, I think, but it's actually an interesting one, which gives you damage immunity for 0.5 seconds after a weapon swap, which I think is great for especially healers, with a 12 seconds cooldown. Comes with Refreshing and Freedom. Same thing here, your priority perk that you would want most of the time is probably going to be Health. This one comes from the Season Pass at level 100. Winged Leather Shoes. I'm not sure why anyone would want these. I mean, I guess you get them at level 20 of the Season Pass anyway, so you don't get much of a say in if you will get them or not. But in terms of what they offer you here, the base duration of haste on you is increased by 50%. This is just nothing, and some testing has been done with it, and apparently it doesn't even seem to work well in combination with certain other haste effects or increases. So I would not bother upgrading these either, unless you somehow figure a way to make them effective. If you do, again, Refreshing and Freedom, you're probably going to put health on it realistically, because why not? The Unmoved, I still need to fully test. because I haven't gotten them yet. I'm not sure how much they have improved or fixed from the PTR. And as it stands, this passive here, you cannot be displaced, may or may not be good. It has Grit Ward and Physical Aversion. Again, you would add health here, and this one comes from PvP track 20+ as well. So once I get it, I'll test more. But there was also a change to Inferno, which is that the unique ability lock here on... Oh, it's actually on the PTR as well. Sorry, it was before the PTR. That was not yet there yet. It was on Incinerate. It's no longer the case. Instead, you have Keenly Empowered and Vicious now, which is also funny. If you had any legal perk before that, and you could have gotten double damage perks through that, then it actually replaced that perk with the Incinerate perk. So, yeah, you're not actually getting anything cool out of that. Just fun fact on the side. This is not terrible now in terms of the damage increase if you're using it with Int. However, it still has issues when using it with Strength specifically. It doesn't increase damage as intended. The dot scaling is not working properly, and it's basically cut in half. So it's realistically not effective for most Strength builds still at this point, because so much damage from the Fire Staff is from the dots, and if the dots are halved, then it's just not going to be enough. Which is weird because they specifically took away the strength, the strike damage effect, and I thought that would fix it, but it seems like it's tied to the conversion instead, because other conversion gems also have that issue. So, as such, only really worth upgrading if you are considering to run it as an int build, in which case you're likely going to be running Empowering Fireball as the upgrade most of the time. And last but not least, Odo's punishment is also changed now that it affects knockdown enemies as well now. It's 20% damage very briefly. I'm sure there's some benefit here in like doing this with like Trenchant Strikes and just fully doubling down on the trip, but probably wouldn't recommend it. I just wanted to point out that it is actually labeled properly now and everything. Those are all the changes. I hope this is helpful and now you know what to do with the items that you want to upgrade. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and clicking the bell if you want to get notified of other upcoming videos about the patch. And other than that, thanks to my patrons for supporting this video. Thank you for watching. Geeksloth out.